Hey, my name is Mackenzie Harper, and today we're going to be going over the back scratch test. So, I have been having issues with trying to get the sound to work correctly on my video, so I'm having to record my PowerPoint on my phone looking at my laptop screen, so I do apologize if it does look a little pixelated, but we're going to go into the back scratch test anyways. So, what does it measure and why is it important? So, first off, we need to talk about flexibility because that is what the main gist is right now for this test. So, flexibility is generally defined as the range of motion in a joint or related series of joints. The back scratch test measures the flexibility of the upper body, specifically focusing on the shoulders. And so, having flexibility in your upper body is important for many daily living activities. And the back scratch test helps identify muscle tightness, joint stiffness, and shoulder injuries that could lead to complications with daily living. And flexible joints lessen the chance of tearing muscle fibers, other joints, and/or tendons when stretching or moving. And when it says that flexible joints lessen the chance of tearing joints, it's meaning that when one joint might not be working, another one has to compensate. And so when you have flexibility, it just improves your likelihood of not getting injured, and it also just helps your living day to day and makes it better. So let's talk about the instructions for the back scratch test. So first off, we need to gather all basic information such as height and weight and put it on the correct sheet. Step 2 is we need our participant to do a 10-minute warm-up. 5 minutes of the warm-up need to be a general warm-up, which means running, cycling, jump roping, etc. like that, just to get the blood pumping. And then we need to have 5 minutes of dynamic stretching warm-up. And dynamic stretching is you're holding a stretch for 1 to 2 seconds just to get blood pumping to that muscle. And normally when doing dynamic stretching, we are specific and we're using specificity to pick out the exact muscle area that we need to be using that day. So in this case, we would be focusing on the upper body and the shoulders and arms to get the blood pumping in that area because that is what we are working, and we want to see fully what the shoulders can do in flexibility terms, so we need blood pumping there in that area to give us the best results possible. Step 3 is after warm-up, we need to have the subject raise the right arm and bend at the elbow and reach across the back as far as possible while also placing the left arm down and behind the back. The subject should attempt to cross the fingers of the left and right hands behind the back. Step 4 is we need to measure the distance of the finger overlap or gap to the nearest 1.3 centimeters or 0.5 inch. An overlap is considered a positive score, whereas a gap between the hands is considered a negative score. And when doing these measurements, we are measuring from the middle finger to the middle finger from both hands. So, and if they merely touch, if their middle fingers merely just touch, the score is 0. And then we record those results. And we do that 3 times for each shoulder. And once we have that measurement for the shoulders each for 3 times, 3 times each, we need to calculate the average for the raised right arm and the raised left arm and record the results. And so we are going to look at a assessment I did on my buddy Connor, and I'm very happy to show you this video and hopefully it explains it better. Hello. Oop, come on. Okay, let me turn up the volume. Hello, I'm Mackenzie Harper, and today I'm going to be doing the back scratch test, and it is just measuring flexibility in your shoulders and your upper body area. So I have my buddy Connor here today to help me with this, and so we've already taken his height and weight, and he's already done a 5-minute dynamic warm-up and then a 5-minute just regular warm-up like walking or cycling, and so now we're actually going to do the test. So if he could turn around for me. So the way this test goes is I need him to raise his right hand and put it as far as he can down the middle of his back. Now I need his left hand to come up behind him and reach as far as he can. And so then I measure the difference between the middle fingers. And this is at 4 inches for his right arm. But it would be a negative 4 inches because when they do not, when your middle fingers do not meet in the back, it is a negative, but if they meet at the tips of both of the middle fingers, it is a 0, and anything that overlaps is a positive value. So we're going to do this 3 times for each shoulder. And so if you could raise your left arm and then put your left arm as far as you can, and then your right arm comes up and tries to reach. And so we measure middle finger to middle finger, and I get 5 inches, but that would be a negative 5 inches for his left arm. So we're going to do that again, but with his right arm. And we're going to stretch as much as we can. It is a negative 5.5 for his right arm. And all of these measurements are inches right now. Left arm again. Try to reach as much as you can. So it is negative 4 for his left arm. And so we're going to do your right arm once again. And you're at 3.5, maybe 3.5. And then your left arm one more time. Thank you, Connor. And so I got negative 4 on that. And so after we get all the values, we have to average them out to be able to classify them. So if we do his right arm, 0.5 divided by 3, we get negative 4.33 inches is his average for his right arm. And then for his left arm, hold up, we get negative 4.33 inches, which is the same in both arms. So he has very average flexibility for both.
Consistent.
And so when we look at that and look at our chart, it ranges him for males in inches. Anything below -1 is in the poor classification. So in this case, Connor has poor flexibility in his shoulders. And so that is how you do the back scratch test. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned in the video already, we talked about his results. But for step 7, it is comparing the average results for each arm with the normative data present and record the results. So in the assessment that I had taken with Connor, we got a negative 4.33 for both his right and left shoulders. And when looking at this normative data for the back scratch test, specifically for college-age students, which he is, and looking at the inches columns for males, we can see that anything below -1 is included in poor classification for flexibility in his shoulders. And so in this case, Connor would have poor flexibility when comparing it to this range. And the range for this flexibility classification chart basically range from the least flexible individual you could possibly think of to the most Olympic flexible athlete you can think of. So it is a very wide range of people. And so in this, his negative 4.33 is a pretty low score, but he did have a shoulder injury, so it makes sense that this test should be showing that injury correctly. And so we're going to look at the fit recommendations for flexibility real quick. And so for frequency of how often you should perform flexible or doing flexible activities to increase your flexibility, such as stretching, we need to do it 2 to 3 days per week. But stretching is most effective when performed daily. And then when thinking about intensity of the stretches that you are going to be doing for flexibility, we need to be moving into a position of mild discomfort for static stretching. And static stretching is basically just holding the stretches for a little bit longer. And so the rate of perceived exertion should be from 13 to 15 when just looking at the chart. And that is a mild discomfort for most people. And then for time, the stretch holds need to normally be between 10 to 30 seconds, normally hopefully on the longer end of the activity. And that's for active static stretches and for PNF when preceded by 3 to 6 seconds of active contractions. It is a 10 to 30 second window for holding the stretches. And then for older adults, it's even longer for holding your stretches. It needs to be from 30 to 60 seconds. And then when looking at type of stretches, you need to use a general stretching routine. It needs to involve the major muscle groups and tendon groups, but you can narrow it down sometimes to have an upper body stretching routine or a lower body stretching routine, especially if you go to the gym and do weightlifting for upper body. There's a lot more blood in that area than your legs, and your muscles are really warm at that moment, so it's better to focus on that upper body than it would be that lower body, because your arms are more pliable when they are warm. And so you can have upper body, lower body, but it's also important to have a full body flexibility routine just to make sure you are hitting all of the joints that you need and all the tendons and muscles. And so then looking at volume, you need to have a total of 60 seconds of flexibility exercises per joint. So in time, it said holding each one from 10 to 30 seconds. But in this case, you need to have a total of 60 seconds. And so that can be accomplished by repeating each static stretch 2 to 4 times, usually. And so then progression is unknown, but low to moderate intensity aerobic activity should be done as a warm-up or use passive heating. You want your muscles to be warm, because the warmer they are and the more blood that's pumping through it, the more pliable they are, and the more you can get a better stretch, and that stretch can lead to more flexibility. I will say that static stretching is not recommended before power and strength exercises, because it can actually decrease the power you generate and the force you generate from those exercises. It is best to do dynamic stretches, which is holding them for 1 to 2 seconds just to get the blood pumping to that specific area, but not enough to decrease its power. And so basically that is the back scratch test. I am sorry if it looks a little pixely. I really did try my best. I apologize for that. And thank you so much for listening.